Before we begin, remember to like and subscribe, as your support is really appreciated. I also want to give thanks to Predator Cues, Talm Chalk, and Kamui Tips. Without them, these videos wouldn't be possible. Philly Fingers here, discussing the straight pool break. Now, the traditional break, you aim for the edge of the rack, you want to make sure that 2 balls hit a rail, and you leave your opponent a very difficult or possibly no shot. But as you can see, the problem here is even though I left a long shot, it's a very makeable shot. So your opponent can easily make this shot, score a point, continue a run, and then is in control of the rack, and then play defense. And this becomes a reoccurring theme, especially since this break is a very delicate and touchy break. As I try it again, you can see in this case I even have a worse result, where I leave an even easier shot for my opponent. So the same situation happens again. My opponent can now make the ball, score a point, he's now in control of the rack, right? He can play defense or go on a run. So that gets me to thinking, what about instead of a conservative defensive break, are there any possible offensive breaks? And that's where in this video I'm going to bring up the conversation and the topic of possibly using the 9-ball cut break. So those who are familiar with 9-ball are very familiar with the idea of the cut break. And the object of the break is usually to take the head ball and either pocket it into the side pocket, or in this example here, pocket it off the side rail back into the corner pocket. So why can't we use this same cut break in straight pool? The object is the same. It's no different than playing 9-ball. As long as you have a good square hit on the head ball, it will track towards that corner pocket. So it just is a matter of practice, getting used to the table, getting used to the conditions, making sure you have a good rack, a nice tight rack, and then there's no reason why you couldn't use the cut break in straight pool and then go on a run. So sure, you could argue it's just about risk versus reward. What happens if you don't make the ball and you've opened up the table for your opponent? Well, that's where practice comes in, right? You're practicing the shot. So no different than if we're doing the cut to the side. It's the same traditional 9-ball cut break. So you practice that break in 9-ball, why wouldn't you just practice it with a full rack to play straight pool? The same risk of leaving it open in 9-ball and letting your opponent break and run is no different than the same risk in straight pool and leaving your opponent the ability to break and run. When you break, your idea isn't to miss, right? You're hoping to make the ball that you're trying to make. And if you think about a break, it's no different than a ball in hand shot. So if your opponent scratches and you have ball in hand and you're purposely setting up the cue ball exactly where you want and you're lining up exactly where you want, you're intending to make that shot. Well, on every break, you have ball in hand. The break is the same every time. The rack is the same every time. The head ball is the same every time. It's on the same spot. So unless you have a loose rack and you're not inspecting your rack, why wouldn't you be able to execute this shot over and over again? Or at least at a very high percentage. No one's going to shoot 100% of the time, but it's still a very makeable shot, and it's an aggressive shot, an offensive shot, and it keeps you in control of the rack as opposed to playing defense, being conservative, and always having to play from behind. Now again, this is a very controversial topic because this video is really meant to drive traditional straight pool players crazy, right? Blow their minds because they're very conservative, very traditional, and sometimes thinking out of the box is hard for straight pool players. So that's kind of what I wanted to see. I wanted to get everyone's reactions, see their thoughts. Would you try to be more aggressive in straight pool? Would you practice? Would you get to the point where the cut break is something you could actually put into your straight pool game? And conversely, for those traditional straight pool players who have mastered the traditional break, the safety break, I'd love to see the comments of how you've mastered that break, what tips or techniques you've used to get that success. So that's my thought on the straight pool break and possibly using the cut break in straight pool. Till next time.